Daniel, leadership and trust. Two things we think we understand until we're tested. And today we're diving into one of the most dramatic examples in history where a legendary leader's single moment of frustration cost him everything.
PAPPY, that's such a fascinating way to look at this story of Moses and the rock. It shows how even the most experienced leaders can stumble when they let emotions override clear instructions.
Daniel, what's interesting here? This all happened at Kadesh-barnea, the same place where 40 years earlier the Israelites had refused to enter the promised land because they didn't trust God enough. Talk about history repeating itself.
Hmm. And now we see their leader facing his trust issues in the exact location. The symbolism there is pretty powerful.
Well, what gets me is how this whole situation started so simply, just a water shortage, but then you see these layers of human nature unfold. The people are romanticizing their time as slaves in Egypt.
Oh, right. They're talking about figs and pomegranates when historical records show they were eating cucumbers and onions as slaves. It's amazing how stress can distort our memories.
And here's where it gets exciting. God specifically changed the instructions this time. Instead of striking the rock like before, Moses was supposed to speak to it. You know what that tells me? Sometimes past success can be our most significant obstacle to present obedience.
That's such a profound observation. So, why do you think God wanted them to speak to the rock this time instead of striking it?
Well, speaking to the rock would have been miraculous. There's no way anyone could explain that through human skill. But striking it, that could have looked like a shepherd's trick or something Moses learned in Egypt. God wanted to demonstrate his power, not human ability.
Pappy instead, Moses says, "Must we bring water out of this rock for you?" Making it all about human leadership rather than divine provision.
Wise, Daniel. And then he strikes it twice. You can almost feel his frustration in that second strike. After 40 years of dealing with complaints and rebellion, he finally snapped. But here's the thing, God still provided the water abundantly.
That's what makes this story so complex, the way it shows both justice and mercy simultaneously. The consequences were severe for Moses, but the people still received what they needed.
And speaking of consequences, missing out on entering the promised land, that's huge. It shows how seriously God takes leadership responsibility. The text makes it clear this wasn't just about disobedience, it was about failing to trust God in a way that would demonstrate his holiness to the people.
That reminds me of something interesting. Studies show that leaders under stress are 60% more likely to rely on experience rather than new information when making decisions.
That statistic brings this home. And in Moses' case, the pressure was intense. The text says the people assembled against him and Aaron. That's not just mild disagreement, that's facing a hostile crowd.
So, in a way, Pappy, this story is really about the dangers of success. Moses had struck a rock for water before, and it worked, but that very success became a stumbling block.
Right, Daniel? And you know what's fascinating? This pattern keeps repeating throughout history. Leaders often face this temptation to rely on their own experience rather than following precise instructions. The higher the pressure, the stronger that temptation becomes.
Well, Pappy, that certainly puts modern leadership challenges in perspective.
Daniel, it does. And here's the ultimate takeaway. While our actions have consequences, they don't derail God's ultimate plans. He provided water abundantly, kept his promises to the people, and eventually brought them into the promised land, albeit with different leadership. Sometimes our biggest failures can become the most significant demonstrations of God's faithfulness.